What if one simple question could turn a routine press conference into a battle for truth and belief? Picture a moment so intense that every eye in the room holds its breath. Today's story takes us deep into a turning point in our nation's recent history. We're talking about a dramatic event where the President of the Republic of Valoria faced an unexpected challenge. In a room filled with reporters and flashing cameras, one question rocked the stage. In this video, we'll break down that unforgettable moment, the emotions behind it, and why it still sparks debates today. The tension in the room was already thick as soon as the press conference began, but nothing could have prepared everyone for the moment when the challenge was thrown down. One of the reporters, with a tone that dripped with sarcasm and disbelief, asked a question that cut straight to the core of the president's public image. "You're not wearing a cross today, so your faith was just a show?" In that instant, the atmosphere changed completely. Imagine hundreds of eyes suddenly shifting from their notepads to the president, their faces a mix of shock, curiosity, and even a hint of disdain. The reporter's question wasn't just a simple inquiry, it was a direct hit to the very heart of his reputation. For years, the president had built his image on a foundation of unwavering dedication to his people and a commitment to doing what he believed was right. Now, in just one sentence, that legacy was being questioned as if it were nothing more than a carefully constructed performance. There was a palpable energy in the room that could be felt in every silent pause. The challenge wasn't only about a piece of jewelry, it was about whether the man who led the nation could truly stand by his values when those values were put under a microscope. It was as if the reporter had thrown a gauntlet at his feet, daring him to prove that his faith was real, not just for the cameras, but for every person who had ever trusted him. The real issue here was the deep-seated skepticism about leadership and authenticity. In a world where every gesture, every accessory, and every word can be twisted into a political statement, the president found himself in a situation where his actions were being scrutinized more than his intentions. Was his choice to wear or not wear a cross simply a calculated move to win favor? Or was it a true reflection of his beliefs and commitment to the people he served? Every person in that room, from the veteran journalist to the newest reporter, felt the weight of this challenge. They all knew that this wasn't just about one man's wardrobe choice. It was about what it meant to lead with genuine conviction. Some in the room had seen the president's past actions, his late-night visits to neighborhoods in need, and his hands-on approach to solving problems. To them, his dedication was evident, regardless of whether a cross hung around his neck. But the reporter's question had struck a nerve, forcing everyone to confront the uncomfortable possibility that even the most admired leaders might be playing a part. As the silence deepened, the challenge became even more personal. The reporter's words echoed like a dare. Prove that your faith isn't just a symbol you can flip on and off like a switch. It pushed the boundaries of what it meant to truly live by one's values. The room held its breath, and every face in the gallery showed a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Would the president crumble under the weight of this challenge? Or would he rise above it and show the world what real leadership looks like? This wasn't merely a question of religious symbolism, it was a test of integrity. In that critical moment, the challenge was clear. The president had to decide whether to get defensive or to embrace the opportunity to redefine what it meant to lead with conviction. The question laid bare a larger problem in today's political landscape, the danger of reducing a person's worth to a superficial trait rather than evaluating the substance of their actions. And now all eyes were on him, waiting for his answer, waiting for him to prove that his life and leadership were defined by more than just symbols. In that silent, electrified moment, the true challenge was set. It wasn't about whether he wore a cross or not. It was about whether his actions, his decisions, and his service to the people could stand up to the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The weight of this challenge was immense, as it forced everyone to question the very nature of authenticity and leadership in an era where appearances often overshadow reality. The tension in the room didn't vanish after that pointed question. Instead, it shifted into something deeper, a silent pressure that pressed on every mind present. In the moments that followed, the atmosphere was charged with questions that went far beyond the surface of a simple accessory. The president's face remained calm, yet every observer could sense a storm of thoughts behind his eyes. While some reporters exchanged subtle glances, others leaned forward as if trying to capture every detail of this unfolding drama. Behind the scenes, whispers of analysis and anticipation began to ripple through the room. Many knew that this wasn't the first time the president had been warned about the potential pitfalls of mixing personal symbols with political leadership. In private meetings before the press conference, advisors had debated the merits and risks of using visible signs of faith. They had cautioned him that what might appear as a genuine personal commitment could easily be exploited by opponents. And here, in the heat of the moment, those concerns were suddenly more real than ever. As the room absorbed the weight of the reporter's challenge, a quiet energy took hold. Journalists started scribbling furiously in their notepads, each trying to piece together what might come next. In that charged silence, the president's decision to forego the cross was not just a fashion choice. It was a carefully measured stance against the expectation that leaders must conform to a symbolic display of faith. It was as if he was daring everyone to question whether his years of hard work, community visits, and policy decisions could be reduced to the mere presence or absence of a piece of jewelry. Every eye was fixed on him, waiting for his next words. For many, this was more than a political maneuver. It was a test of character. The public, too, was silently watching from behind screens, curious to see if their leader would allow a moment of vulnerability to undermine years of trust. In that space between the question and the answer, the true challenge was laid bare. Could a leader withstand the scrutiny of personal symbolism in an era where every move was dissected and debated? Inside his mind, the president might have been recalling past advice, reminders that actions speak louder than appearances. With each tick of the clock, he weighed the risks of either ignoring the question or addressing it head-on. Ignoring it might have appeared evasive, but answering it risked opening the door to further criticism. Yet, in that pivotal moment, he chose to seize the opportunity. His silence was not an admission of weakness. It was a strategic pause, allowing the gravity of the situation to settle in before he spoke. This was a time when every word could tip the balance of public opinion. The idea of authenticity was being put to the test. On one side were those who believed that a leader's true worth was measured by visible symbols of faith, and on the other, those who understood that genuine commitment came from actions and policies rather than personal adornments. The room was caught in this crossfire of ideas, where tradition met modern expectations. As the seconds stretched on, the president's steady gaze swept across the room. He seemed to be silently acknowledging the unsaid challenge, that leadership should not be judged by surface details. There was an unspoken message in his calm demeanor, a declaration that his service to the people was built on deep, lasting values rather than fleeting public displays. In that moment, his choice to let his actions define his faith was as powerful as any speech could be. Around him, the mood shifted subtly. Reporters who had prepared to pounce on a misstep found themselves instead witnessing a display of measured confidence. Some noted the way his eyes locked with theirs, as if daring them to continue their line of questioning. The energy in the room transformed from one of confrontation to an almost collective introspection on the nature of leadership. The question had forced everyone present to confront an uncomfortable truth. In politics, even a simple piece of jewelry could be weaponized into a symbol of either virtue or deceit. Over the next several minutes, as murmurs replaced the initial shock, the exploration of this challenge deepened. The media began to speculate on the underlying issues. Was this a calculated move by political rivals to undermine his authority? Or was it a genuine attempt by someone who couldn't see beyond a superficial marker of faith? Every comment, every whispered theory added layers to the situation. It was clear that this was not just an isolated moment, but part of a larger, ongoing debate about what it means to lead in a time when personal image can easily be conflated with political ideology. Observers started connecting the dots. They recalled previous instances where political figures had used religious symbols to garner support, or conversely, where such symbols had backfired, leading to accusations of hypocrisy. The president's decision to sidestep the trend by not letting a missing accessory define him was being analyzed from every angle. Some saw it as a bold statement against the shallow expectations of modern politics, while others worried it might alienate a segment of the electorate that valued visible symbols of faith. In this unfolding drama, every element was magnified: the silence, the tension, the deliberate calm of the president, and even the skeptical tone of the reporter's question. It became clear that this was not just a debate about a cross or a fashion choice. It was about the soul of leadership itself. At its core, the event raised a pressing question. In a world obsessed with appearances, can true integrity still shine through if measured solely by actions and not by symbols? As the discussion deepened, personal stories began to surface among the journalists and onlookers. Many recalled moments when they, too, had felt the sting of being reduced to a single trait or moment. A reminder that everyone, regardless of their position, has faced judgment based on superficial details. This shared human experience created an undercurrent of empathy, even among those who were prepared to criticize. In a strange twist, the reporter's challenge, meant to diminish the president's image, instead sparked a broader conversation about the nature of respect, authenticity, and the real markers of leadership. In that pivotal stretch of time, the exploration of the issue evolved from a simple question to an examination of what truly matters in public life. It wasn't about winning or losing a debate. It was about challenging the very foundations on which we build our perceptions of leaders. This development phase of the conversation set the stage for what would come next, a powerful response that would not only answer the question, but redefine it for everyone watching. Through every exchanged glance, every silent moment, and every recorded note, the challenge morphed into a catalyst for introspection. The room was no longer just a press conference venue. It had become a forum where ideas clashed and values were laid bare. The unfolding drama was a clear reminder that in our fast-paced, image-driven world, true leadership is measured not by what you wear, but by the legacy you leave behind in the hearts and minds of those you serve. Yesterday, some of my advisors told me that my wearing of the cross could be seen as a political gesture, a symbol that might be misinterpreted or used against us. But let me be clear, faith is more than just what you see on the outside. Faith is in the way we act, the decisions we make, and the lives we touch. In those words, the president redefined the conversation. He wasn't denying his faith, he was elevating it. He explained that wearing a cross or not was irrelevant compared to how one lives and leads. His response wasn't defensive or apologetic. It was a firm reminder of his principle. The cross was merely a symbol. What truly mattered was his commitment to justice, honesty, and the service of his people. He continued, his voice growing even more intense as he drove home his point. I feel sorry for those who think they can judge my faith by the accessories I choose. Faith isn't something you wear like a badge. It's something you live every day. It's about standing up for what's right, keeping your promises, and fighting for your country. My faith is shown in my actions, not on my neck. As he spoke, every word resonated in the room. The president wasn't just answering a question, he was making a statement about integrity and leadership. His calm yet powerful tone reminded everyone that real faith is not a performance for the cameras or the critics. It's a deep-rooted commitment to the values that build a nation. For a few long moments, the room was silent again, but this time it was filled with respect and contemplation. The reporter's sarcastic challenge had been met with an answer that left no room for further debate. The president's words rippled through the press, sparking discussions not just about the symbolism of the cross, but about what true leadership means. Let's break down what made this moment so powerful. First, consider the setting. A high-stakes press conference where every word is analyzed and every gesture scrutinized. The president was in a position where his every action could be interpreted as either genuine leadership or a calculated political move. By choosing to address the question head-on, he took control of the narrative. The question itself was designed to provoke a direct attack on his character, aimed to create a divide between his public persona and his private beliefs. But the president turned this challenge on its head. Instead of retreating or offering a vague explanation, he provided a clear, decisive answer that left little room for doubt. His words made it clear that his actions were not dictated by symbols, but by a deep personal commitment to serving the people of Valoria. This was a turning point in the way many viewed leadership. It brought forward the idea that symbols, while powerful, are only as meaningful as the actions they represent. In a world where image and appearance often overshadow substance, the president's response was a reminder that true leadership is defined by service, accountability, and unwavering values. Moreover, his choice to speak calmly and respectfully, even when faced with a mocking question, showed his strength and resilience. It was a moment of vulnerability turned into power, a reminder that even in the face of personal attacks, one can remain steadfast in their beliefs and values. His words were not just about deflecting criticism, they were a call for a deeper understanding of what it means to have faith. The reaction in the room was mixed at first. Some reporters seemed taken aback by the raw honesty in his voice, while others scribbled furiously in their notepads, trying to capture every nuance of his message. Even the most skeptical among them couldn't help but be drawn into the gravity of his statement. For a brief moment, the press room became a forum for an unspoken conversation about what really matters in leadership and governance. In the days that followed, this moment dominated discussions in newsrooms, social media, and dinner tables across Valoria. People debated whether the president had gone too far or not far enough. Some argued that he had done exactly what was needed, a reminder that symbols are secondary to actions. Others wondered if the attack on his faith might have deeper implications for his political agenda. But one thing was clear: the moment had left a lasting impression. As the press conference moved on, the air remained charged with the echoes of the president's words. Behind closed doors, political analysts and commentators dissected every syllable. They discussed how this moment could change the narrative around the administration's policies and the public's trust in their leader. For many citizens of Valoria, the event marked a moment of realization. It was a reminder that leaders are human and that the symbols they choose to display are just parts of a much larger picture. In a country where faith and tradition often collide with modern political expectations, the president's statement was both a challenge and a reassurance. It challenged the notion that appearances alone can define a person's character, and reassured the public that his commitment to justice and service was genuine. The discussion wasn't limited to political circles. Ordinary people on the streets, in cafes, and online found themselves talking about the press conference. Social media lit up with debates and discussions. Some praised the president for his candidness, saying his words brought a breath of fresh air in a time of cynicism and superficiality. Others, however, remained critical, arguing that the issue of symbols and faith was too complex to be settled in a single sentence. One thing all these conversations had in common was the impact of that one question and the president's measured response. It wasn't just a political statement, it was a reflection of the struggles faced by anyone in the public eye. Balancing personal beliefs with public expectations is never easy, and the president's experience resonated with many who had faced similar dilemmas in their own lives. This incident also sparked broader reflections on the role of faith in leadership. What does it really mean to have faith? Is it something that can be measured by outward appearances, or is it an internal drive to do what's right? The president's answer provided a clear perspective. Faith is not a fashion accessory, it's a core part of one's identity and actions. His words encourage people to look beyond the surface and consider the deeper motivations that drive us all. In classrooms, debate clubs, and community centers, people discuss the meaning of faith and the responsibilities of leaders. Teachers use the event as an example to show students how powerful words can be when they come from a place of truth. Debates on ethics and leadership became more common, with the president's response serving as a case study in integrity and accountability. The climax of the story came in that quiet moment when the president finished speaking. The silence that followed wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the sound of a nation pausing to reflect. Every person in the room, from the most hardened skeptic to the staunchest supporter, felt the weight of his words. The reporter's attempt to trivialize his faith had been met with a response that was both personal and profound. It was a moment of clarity, a turning point where the focus shifted from symbols to substance. The president's words broke through the noise of political posturing and reminded everyone that true leadership is built on actions, not appearances. It wasn't about wearing a cross or any other symbol. It was about living a life of commitment and service. In that moment, the air in the room seemed to change. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every detail. The slight tilt of his head, the firm set of his jaw, and the calm intensity in his eyes. These small details told a larger story, a story of a man who was unafraid to stand up for his beliefs, even when the spotlight was harsh and the questions were pointed. For many, this was the moment they realized that the true measure of a leader isn't in the symbols they display, but in the lives they impact. The president's reply wasn't just a defense. It was an invitation for everyone to rethink what it means to lead. It was a call to focus on the real issues: justice, honesty, and service. And in doing so, it resonated deeply with a public that was hungry for authenticity in a world full of staged performances. The impact of that moment rippled far beyond the walls of the press room. News outlets reran clips of the exchange, commentators cited his words in their analyses, and citizens found themselves discussing the meaning of leadership over dinner tables and in online forums. In every discussion, one thing was clear: the president had set a new standard for what it means to face criticism with grace and determination. After the press conference, the discussions did not fade away. Instead, they grew louder and more passionate. People from all walks of life began to share their own stories about what leadership meant to them. Some recalled moments in their lives when they had to choose between what was popular and what was right. Others admired the president for showing that real faith is built on actions, not appearances. In community halls and social gatherings across Valoria, the topic became a catalyst for broader conversations about integrity and leadership. Local leaders, inspired by the president's words, began to emphasize the importance of transparency and accountability. Schools invited speakers to discuss ethics and civic responsibility, using the event as a powerful example of how one person's response can change the course of a conversation. Political rivals, too, had to take notice. For a moment, the usual lines of attack were blurred by a shared recognition of the president's courage. Even those who had long criticized him had to admit that his measured response had struck a chord. It wasn't just a deflection of a question. It was a statement of values that resonated with the core of what many believed leadership should be. Social media platforms buzzed with activity. Videos of the press conference were shared, reshared, and commented on by thousands. Memes, thoughtful posts, and even art were created in response to the event. It was as if the president's words had become a spark that ignited a fire of conversation across the entire nation. In every tweet, post, and comment, the same question emerged: what does real faith mean to you? The conversation soon expanded beyond politics. In religious communities, scholars and everyday believers debated the relationship between personal symbols and true spirituality. They discussed how society often confuses material signs with inner conviction, and many concluded that the president's words had clarified this confusion. His message was simple yet profound. A symbol does not define one's heart, and actions speak louder than any piece of jewelry. Even in places far from the political spotlight, in quiet neighborhoods and small towns, people felt the impact of that moment. It became a reference point, a reminder that every choice we make, no matter how small, contributes to our identity. The president's stance had shown that leadership is not about putting on a show, it's about living truthfully and serving with honor. Let's pause and reflect on what we can learn from this dramatic exchange. At its core, the story is not just about a single press conference or a single question. It's about the values we hold dear in our society. The President of Valoria reminded us that while symbols can be powerful, they should never overshadow the substance of our actions. True faith, as he so clearly put it, isn't something you can measure by what you wear or display for the cameras. It's about commitment. It's about showing up every day, making tough decisions, and standing by your promises even when it's not the popular choice. This message has relevance far beyond the realm of politics. It's a call to all of us to think about what we value most in our lives. In our everyday struggles, whether in our bus, our relationships, or our communities, we are constantly faced with choices that test our integrity. The president's words echo in these moments, reminding us that the real measure of who we are is not in the surface details, but in the actions we take. It's a lesson in accountability, urging us to focus on what truly matters: honesty, service, and the courage to stand by our convictions. This story also shines a light on the power of a well-timed response. In a world full of quick sound bites and fleeting headlines, a single, thoughtful reply can change the course of a conversation. The president's calm demeanor, his refusal to be drawn into a spectacle, and his clear articulation of his beliefs created a moment that will be remembered for years to come. It shows us that sometimes the most powerful answer is one that speaks from the heart, without the need for theatrics. For those of us who are watching today, this isn't just history, it's a lesson for the future. Whether you're a leader in your community or just someone trying to make sense of the world around you, remember that your actions define you more than any symbol ever could. Let this story be a reminder to always live with purpose and to stand up for what you believe in, no matter the pressure. In the end, what happened at that press conference was more than just a political moment. It was a powerful reminder of what true leadership looks like. The President of Valoria turned a potentially divisive question into a moment of unity and clarity. He reminded us that faith isn't about appearances, but about actions. His words continue to inspire discussions on integrity, responsibility, and the essence of leadership. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into the heart of leadership and faith. I hope you found the story as thought-provoking as I did, and that it made you reflect on what truly matters in life. If you believe that real strength comes from genuine actions and heartfelt conviction, then you'll want to stick around for more stories that cut right to the core. Subscribe now for more dramatic stories that matter.